I want to tell you something that a doctor in a nice clean office in San Diego, California, told me 5 years ago, and I'm going to tell you exactly how he said it, because I'll never forget a word of it. He sat across from me and he folded his hands and he said, Mr. Holloway, given your heart and your age and everything we're seeing, I'd want you to think in terms of maybe 5 years, and I'd want those years to be comfortable. Comfortable. He meant a recliner. He meant television. He meant sitting still and waiting for it. I was 79 years old that day. Today I'm 84. So by that good doctor's arithmetic, I'm living on time I wasn't supposed to have, and I'm not spending it in a recliner in San Diego. I'm telling you this from a plastic chair on a porch on an island in the Philippines, with the sea about a 2-minute walk down the road, and a heart that, according to a doctor who was very sure of himself, should have quit on me a while back. It hasn't. And I've got a pretty good idea why, and I want to tell you the whole thing, because I think a lot of you are sitting where I was sitting in that office. So let me back up. Because if you're watching this, maybe somebody in a white coat has handed you a number two. Maybe you've been told to go home and be comfortable. Let me tell you what I did instead. My name is Gerald. Everybody's always called me Gerry. I spent most of my life as an electrician in San Diego, 41 years of it, wiring houses and office buildings, and once, I'm proud to say, a wing of a hospital, which is a funny thing to think about now. I was married to a woman named Ruth for 46 years. She was my whole world, and she passed in 2017. And I want to be honest, a piece of me went with her. We had one son, Michael, a good boy, lives up in Seattle. Busy life, 2 kids of his own. We talked on the phone, he loved me, but he had his own mountain to climb, and I understood that. After Ruth passed, I did what a lot of old men do. I got smaller. My world just quietly shrank. I stopped cooking real meals because cooking for one is a sad business. I watched a lot of television, and my health, which had never been much of a worry, started sending me letters, if you know what I mean. The blood pressure, the heart flutters, the pills, and then more pills to handle the side effects of the first pills. And then came the day in that office. The heart specialist, a young sharp fella, ran all his tests and sat me down and gave me the 5 years and the word comfortable. And here's the thing I have to be honest about. I didn't argue. I didn't rage against it. I just nodded and said, "Thank you, doctor." And I drove home to my little condo and I sat down in the recliner. And I want to tell you what those next several months were actually like, because it's the part that matters. I did exactly what he told me. I got comfortable. And getting comfortable, it turned out, was killing me faster than my heart was. Because here's what comfortable looks like when you're a widower with a 5-year sentence. You stop making plans, because what's the point? You stop calling people because every conversation circles back to, how are you feeling, and you're tired of the answer. You start sleeping more and more, 10, 11 hours, and it's not rest, it's just checking out early. I'd wake up, and the first clear thought in my head most mornings was, well, one less to go. I was counting down. I had turned myself into a man in a waiting room, and the only thing I was waiting for was the end. I want to be honest about how dark that got, because I promised myself I would be, and because I think somebody watching needs to hear it plain. It wasn't that I wanted to die, it's that I'd stopped living. And there's a difference, and the second one is worse in a way, because you're still here for it. I'd sit in that recliner, and I could feel the days going by like cars on a highway. I wasn't on anymore. My son would call, and I'd put on the strong voice, "Oh, I'm fine, Michael, doing fine." And then I'd hang up and sit in the silence and think, I am not fine. I am a man waiting in a chair to stop existing. And nobody would even know for a while. So how in the world did I go from that recliner to this porch, from counting down to counting up? I'll tell you, and it started with a physical therapist. Of all people, a young woman I only saw a handful of times. After a small episode with my heart, they sent me to a cardiac rehab place, and I got assigned this therapist, a young Filipino woman named Joy. And I have to tell you, the name fit. This woman had more life in her than the whole rest of that clinic combined. And she'd get me on the little treadmill, and she wouldn't let me feel sorry for myself. And one day I was in a mood and I said something like, "What's the point of all this? I've been given 5 years anyway." And she stopped the machine and she looked at me and she said something I have not been able to shake since. She said, "Mr. Gerry, my grandmother in the Philippines, the doctors gave up on her when she was 70. She lived to 94. You know why? Because nobody let her sit down. In my country, we don't let the old ones sit down and wait. We keep them in the middle of everything. We don't let the old ones sit down and wait." I sort of laughed it off at the time, but that sentence lodged in me like a splinter, because that's exactly what I'd done. I'd sat down. A doctor told me to sit down and be comfortable, and I'd obeyed like a good patient, and I was rotting in that chair. Over the next weeks, I kept asking Joy about her home, and she'd light up and tell me about her province, an island down south, about how her grandmother lived right in the thick of the family until the very end, how nobody there gets shipped off to a facility, how the old people are the center of everything, holding babies and settling arguments and being fussed over. She told me about the warmth, and I don't just mean the weather. She told me how cheap it was to live well. And she said the thing that finally cracked me open. She said, "Mr. Gerry, in America you are waiting to die. In my country, an old man like you, they would not let you. They would drag you back to life whether you wanted it or not." And I went home that night, and I sat in the recliner, and I thought about the recliner. I thought, this chair is going to be where I die. I can already see it. And for the first time in a year, something in me said, not like this, not in this chair. If I've only got a few years, I do not want to spend them here waiting. Now I want to be honest about the money, because I know somebody watching is doing the math, and I'm not going to fudge the numbers. I wasn't rich. Ruth and I had been careful, and I had my pension from the electrician's union and my Social Security. Together, it came to a little under $2,700 a month. In San Diego, that made me a poor old man. The condo fees alone were eating me alive, and every medical thing on top, even with Medicare, chipped away at what was left. I was comfortable, like the doctor wanted, but I was comfortable the way you're comfortable, slowly sinking. I started doing what a man does. I got on the computer at the library because Joy had lit that pilot light, and I researched. And here's what I found, and it genuinely made me angry. Angry that nobody had told me sooner. That same 2,700 a month that made me a poor waiting to die old man in California would make me a comfortable, cared for, active old man in the Philippines with money left over. I read about the retirement visa. I read about the cost of a person to help around the house, which in San Diego was a fantasy, and there was something normal. I read for hours. I filled a notebook. And for the first time since Ruth passed, I had a project that wasn't dying. My son thought the heart trouble had gone to my head. "Dad, you have a serious heart condition. You want to move to a developing country, 10,000 miles from your doctors. From me, what if something happens?" And I said the truest thing I'd said in 2 years. I said, "Michael, something is already happening. I'm dying in a chair right now, and you can't see it because I've got a nice voice on the phone. I would rather have 2 real years over there than 5 fake ones in this recliner." I want to be honest about how I felt getting on that plane because it wasn't confidence. I was a man with a bad heart flying to the far side of the earth against medical advice. It was closer to a man who's tried every door in a long hallway and there's one door left at the very end, and he doesn't believe it'll open either, but he's already come this far, so he might as well reach up and rattle the handle. That's all it was. I landed in Manila in a wall of heat and noise and color, and my first honest thought, sweating and exhausted with a pill organizer rattling in my carry-on, was, Gerry, you old fool, your heart is going to give out right here in this airport, and Michael will have been right. But Joy had connected me with her cousin, a nurse named Grace, down in the province. And when I finally got off that last little ferry, half dead from 2 days of travel, there was a young woman holding a piece of cardboard that said, Welcome, Lolo Gerry. Lolo means grandfather. She'd called me grandfather before she'd even met me. Nobody had been happy to see me arrive anywhere in years. Now here's the part that changed everything, and it happened faster than I can believe even now. Grace, being a nurse, took one look at my bag of medications and sat me down that first week and went through all of it. And then she took me to a local doctor, cost me about $15, no 3-month wait, walked right in. And this doctor, he looked at my heart, and he didn't say the word comfortable one time. What he said was, Okay, Lolo, we keep you moving. Gentle but moving. You walk every morning while it is cool. You eat the fish, the vegetables, less of the heavy American food. You come see me. We watch it together. He didn't hand me a countdown. He handed me a plan. And the family, oh, the family. Grace's whole family more or less absorbed me. There was her grandmother. Everybody called her Lola Pacing. Must have been 90 herself, sharp as a tack, ran that household from a chair on the porch. And she decided I was her project. She'd cackle at me in a language I didn't understand and make me play card games and accuse me of cheating. And I didn't need the translation to know exactly what she was saying. Grace's mother started cooking for me, and within 2 weeks she stopped asking what I wanted and just brought me a plate of what she'd decided I was having, fish and rice and vegetables and these greens. And I have to tell you, the first time she did that, decided for me the way Ruth used to, I had to look out at the yard so nobody would see an old man's eyes go wet. But here's what I really want you to understand, because it's the actual medicine, and it's free. They would not let me sit down, just like Joy promised. Every single day there was a reason to be up and out. Lola Pacing wanted a card game. The neighbors' kids wanted the tall American to watch them play basketball in the alley, and pretty soon they gave me a job. I just had to stand under the hoop and tap it in, and they cheered every time like I'd won a championship. Grace took my morning walk seriously as her medical duty and appeared at my door at 5:30 every morning, whether I liked it or not. In San Diego, I'd been a man nobody needed. Here I could not get 5 minutes to feel sorry for myself. And I felt it, physically. Within a couple of months, I was sleeping less and living more. My color came back, my weight came down, the good way, from walking and eating real food. I had more air in my lungs. I wasn't checking out at 11 hours of sleep anymore. I was up at dawn because the day was pulling at me. My heart, the thing that was supposed to be counting me down, felt stronger than it had in years. I don't know all the science of it, but I know that a body that's needed and moving and fed and laughed with is a different body than one sitting in a recliner waiting to stop. Now I have to make a turn here because I promised you honesty, and it wasn't a straight line up. There was a hard stretch about 5 months in, and it nearly sent me home for good. I caught something, a fever, and with my heart, everybody got scared, including me. And I ended up in the provincial hospital for a few days, and lying there with the fever, all the fear came flooding back, everything Michael had warned me about. And Michael called, frightened, and he said the thing I knew was coming. Dad, that's it. This was a beautiful adventure, but you have a heart condition, and you're sick in a hospital I can't even get to. I'm booking you a flight home. I need you here where I can look after you. And I lay there, and I had to decide. And I'll tell you the truth about what was really going on inside me, because it wasn't the fever. Here's the splinter under the splinter. I was scared that Joy and this whole place had just been telling me a pretty story, and that the doctor in San Diego was right all along, and that I'd flown across the world just to die embarrassed and far from home and prove my son right. And it was Lola Pacing, 90 years old, who broke it open. She came and sat by my hospital bed, this tiny ancient woman, and Grace translated. And she took my hand and she said, "The other doctor told you a number. He does not decide. He is not God. Only God knows the number, and God likes a man who is still trying." And then she squeezed my hand and said, "You are not finished, Lolo. Finished men do not walk every morning. Get up. Finished men do not walk every morning." I'm 84 years old, and I've heard a lot of things said in my life. Nobody ever put the fight back in me the way that old woman did in that hospital room. I got better, and I called Michael back, and I said, "Son, I'm not coming home, and I need you to hear why. Because a doctor gave me 5 years in a chair, and this place gave me back my legs and my mornings and my laugh. I'd rather die trying to live over here than stay alive waiting to die over there. And if that scares you, come and see it. Come see what it did to your old man." And there was a long quiet on the phone, and then my son said, "Then I'm coming." And he did about 8 months later, and I watched this place do to him what it did to me. By the third day, he was sitting on the porch, playing cards with Lola Pacing, the two of them who didn't share a word of language, laughing, and he looked over at me with wet eyes and said, "Dad, I get it. I'm sorry I tried to bring you home. You're more alive than I've seen you since Mom. So let me tell you what an ordinary day looks like now, because the ordinary days turned out to be the whole entire point. I'm up at 5:30 without an alarm. Grace and I walk while it's cool, down toward the water, and I know the fishermen now and they know me. There's a little stall where a woman sells coffee and the soft bread, and she stopped letting me order weeks ago. She just hands me what she's decided I'm having. Then most days I sit with Lola Pacing on the porch and get accused of cheating at cards. Afternoons when it's hot, I nap like a sensible man. Evenings there's always something, a birthday, a baptism, somebody's fiesta, and they always want the old American there, and I always go. I have not eaten dinner alone since the week I arrived. In San Diego, I ate every single meal alone. Think about that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's perfect, because I promised you honesty. The heat is real. The power goes out, they call it a brownout. You keep candles. The rainy season floods the roads. There's paperwork and visa rules you've got to stay on top of. And yes, some folks see white hair and a foreign face and see a wallet. And you keep your wits about you. It's a real place with real problems and real mosquitoes, not a postcard. And I want to be straight. I still have a heart condition. This place isn't magic. I didn't get cured, but there is a very large difference between living with a condition and waiting to die from one. And this place moved me from the second to the first. But here's what I've landed on at 84, 5 years past my expiration date. A doctor gave me a number and told me to sit down and be comfortable. And comfortable was the most dangerous word anybody ever said to me, because comfortable was a recliner, and that recliner was going to be my coffin. What I actually needed was the opposite of comfortable. I needed to be needed. I needed somebody to make me get up at dawn. I needed a table with a plate set for me, and a card game I was accused of cheating at, and children cheering when I tapped a basketball in. I needed to be dragged back into the middle of life, and the recliner couldn't give me that. Only people could, and I had to fly to the far side of the world to find people who still knew how to do it. If somebody in a white coat has handed you a number, and you've gone home and sat down in your own recliner to be comfortable and wait, I'm not going to tell you the answer is the Philippines. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I will tell you this with everything I've got. That number is not God. And the surest way to make a doctor's countdown come true is to sit down and stop living the day he says it. Don't you dare sit down. Being comfortable is not the same as being alive. And look, if any part of this lit even a flicker in you, do yourself one favor before you talk yourself out of it like I almost did. Get the honest version of the facts, not the fantasy and not the fear. And this matters double if you've got a health condition like me, because the health care and the visa and the real costs are things you want to understand cold before you ever get on a plane. I put together everything I wish somebody had handed me, the real numbers, how the retirement visa works, how the health care actually works out here, and what it really costs, the cities compared, and the traps to watch out for, because there are traps. It's down in the description. An informed flicker beats a fantasy every single time. As for me, I'm Gerry. I'm 84 years old, which a very confident doctor in San Diego did not expect, and I'm sitting on a porch 2 minutes from the sea with a card game starting up and a plate being made for me in the kitchen and a walk with Grace waiting at dawn. Ruth, if you can hear me, I'm not in the chair anymore. I got up. I finally got up. And I think you'd be glad they don't let the old ones sit down and wait here. They drag you back to life, whether you're ready or not. And thank God they do. So whoever you are, wherever you're sitting tonight, if somebody's handed you a number and told you to get comfortable, hear an old man who's living 5 years past his own number. Get up out of that chair. There's one more door at the end of the hall. Go on and rattle the handle. You'd be amazed which one finally opens. Thank you for sitting with an old man and his story. Take care of yourselves out there. And come visit the Philippines sometime. Somebody here will set a plate for you, and they will not let you sit down. They never do.